Next round of panelists to come onto the stage as I introduce them. We have Alberto Baco, who served as president of the Puerto Rico Economic Development Bank, executive vice president of the Government Development Bank in the 90s, later secretary of Economic Development and Commerce of Puerto Rico in 2013, and he currently directs the nonprofit partnership of Modern Puerto Rico. Rojo is the president and CEO of VRM Companies, one of the leading firms in the real estate development industry in Puerto Rico. They have offices in Florida and in the Dominican Republic. Fede Sanchez is the president and CEO of Interlink Group, San Juan-based company specializing in development, construction, asset management. They're actually the company involved with having the shares made right here that are enjoying this amazing summit. And Francisco Pericas is currently a senior vice president and director of Fiduciary Services Division at Banco Popular, where he manages over $2 billion in deposits and $17 billion in assets under management. Yeah. Welcome to the stage, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hello. When I go to Spain and we do this kind of panels, they say, estamos presentando un panel de lujo. And I always like that, the way they say panel de lujo. I guess in the US they don't use a luxury panel, but this is a real luxury room. Fede, Rafa, Francisco, they have scars. They have a lot of things. I think that, and I hope that you have some questions for them, because they have been cycles in Puerto Rico. Fede, I had the opportunity of working with him while we were dreamers. We both worked as the Olympus Mountain in Puerto Rico, the Government Development Bank. When the Government Development Bank was one of the most important banks in the US, everybody wanted to do business with the GDB. And there we were working on the fourth floor, the top of the GDB. From there, many things have happened in Puerto Rico. All those dreams went to very difficult times. I think that the dreams now are bigger. That's the good part of the story. So this will be fun. And Rafa, which will begin with his story. I have met him after hearing him through the radio with such an articulated message, understanding our economy and facing so many challenges, but always believing in Puerto Rico and maneuvering some of the different crises and doing great things from the perspective of housing. So, Rafa, tell us a little bit about projects that you have been able to get into when nobody wanted, and how they have come about in the 2024.
Sure. Hello everyone. Hi Alberto, thank you for that introduction. So yeah, I love the topic of this panel and to talk about how projects really can transform. I believe you're going to see some slides of two projects, and we were very lucky to have the opportunity to acquire, I think, two important pieces of property in 2018, formerly known as Comunidad Nuevo Norte, others know it as Finca Rosso, and we marketed as La Riviera. And in 2020, we acquired Ciudad Jardín Gurao. Both of them were victims of abandonment in very different circumstances, but they both, as you will see on the images, went through basically the same things. Riviera It's very long and sad story. Expropriated by the government in 1963. Basically, the government sat on the property for over 40 years. Did a lot of plans, and a lot of plans while the land was sitting there. Probably was even better than when they actually started deciding to develop the property, and then they came up with this plan maestro and decided they were going to build all this infrastructure and then sell all the parcels to different developers. Not to say that that model cannot work, but in that case, it definitely did not work. The government spent outrageous amounts of money, over $7 million in infrastructure, to then let it just sit there and abandon the property. Back in 2008, government decided to do a bid. We were the only ones that came out to get it. Wish I would have known that before. This was right after Hurricane Maria. No funds have been assigned yet, so we did not have basically the expectation of what was going to happen. Obviously, COVID was not yet around, and nobody even knew what was going to come after COVID. So we were very fortunate to have that property in our hands after everything that transpired. Did not like the inflation part so much, but yet throughout the past 6 years, we went from building homes in Riviera in the very high 200s, 280, 300 different products, different sizes, to products in the $400,000, products in the $800 $1 million price range, and we even have a small niche project within Riviera, and we sold homes as much as $4 million. Again, that's a niche project on 22 units, and the bulk of what we sold probably, I would say, is between $500 and $1 million. Very, very good location. I'll be very brief. I consume so much time. I think you're seeing the images right now. Similar circumstances, probably even sadder. This was a project by a very well-known and reputable builder that happened to be very over-leveraged when the financial crisis came in. There was 520 families living in Ciudad Timbrao when we bought all the undevelopable land, which made us grab on the hat of promoters and basically also grab onto the Master Homeowners Association that had all the common areas. And as you'll see in images, it was literally a disaster. The HOA was broke. There was no money, no capex. There was not even money for OPEX. All the properties were completely abandoned. Hurricane Maria had gone through a lot of these properties. They had no insurance, so as you can imagine, they were completely untouched. So through our business plan, our business model, we were able to acquire the property, and betting on the fact that we would be able to sell our homes, we started basically to improve all the basically deteriorated assets and improve up on them and build new assets. So basically what we try to do is give a working class family a resort type project in a suburb setting where once you get there, you have everything you need from restaurants, coffee shops, tent center, and all the amenities that we see that the young families are looking for these days at a price point between $300,000 and $400,000, which these days is very challenging to build homes at that price point.
Thank you, Rafa. I will give you I love stories. Back in 2016, I ended up being, apart from being Secretary of Economic Development, I ended up being Chairman and President of the Government Development Bank, what was left of the Government Development Bank. And one of the issues that came to every board and every meeting was that project. And it was a headache for the Government Development Bank. It was costing a lot in security, maintenance, and all that. And all I got from the officials of the bank was, why these crazy people got into this project? Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. went to a lot of RFPs, and nobody came to the RFPs. And as Rafa said, they ended up buying the property and as everything in Puerto Rico. Now, they got away with murder, but at least they are from Puerto Rico, and they got the property, and they are doing a great project where a lot of friends have their house and are very happy. So that's the story of housing in the last 10 years in Puerto Rico. Now Fede will do a different perspective. Fede has been in the condo market, in the luxury condo market, and mostly in the hospitality market. And he, all of a sudden, I think he got something like he was playing musical chairs, and all of a sudden, he one day was without chairs. And he found himself with a lot of projects in Puerto Rico, good projects, and a huge impression where those of you that were not here cannot imagine what happened in Puerto Rico when you have half of the manufacturing force leaving the island and half of the banking being closed down. Really, I don't think that has happened with that velocity in any part of the United States. So that's what we endured, and Fede was with some big projects on his hands. So if he can tell us a little bit of that story and where he's now, I think it will be interesting.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you, Alberto. When Alberto said that we worked together, actually, I was fresh out of college. I didn't know anything about anything. Alberto was my boss, and I was very fortunate to learn from him and from the great public servants that the GDB had at that time. I'll talk a little bit about what has happened in the hospitality sector, not only in the lodging segment, but in the ownership of hotels, new developments, and how tourism has become an engine of economic development on the island. Actually, back in '89 and '90, the government, when we worked together, the government owned about 25% of the hotel inventory, and it was difficult for the government to even give them away. So it was different times. So
I was saying today that in Conquistador, nobody wanted it. Right in the whole United States. It was
actually the only option was in Maharashi that wanted to do a religious center for meditation back then. Actually, he owned it for some years. But anyway, what has happened in Puerto Rico since Hurricane Maria has been significant, and particularly after the pandemic. We have doubled the lodging revenue in the island since 2019, which was a banner year. But if we go back to Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico received tons of press coverage, and suddenly a lot of folks in the mainland started realizing, well, that's right, Puerto Rico is part of the United States. It's actually pretty close. I see it on the radar. It's not that far from Florida. That really raised the level of awareness and understanding of the destination. Also, at the same time, Puerto Rico is receiving a lot of negative press because of our fiscal challenges and the bond crisis in Puerto Rico. But for the wrong reasons, but it did, again, contribute to the level of understanding, raising the level of awareness of the destination. At the same time, Puerto Rico made a critical decision for the better, and decided to put the marketing of the destination in private hands. creating a destination marketing organization. Previously, the Puerto Rico Tourism Company did all the marketing for Puerto Rico every 4 years. The creative changed, the slogans changed. And it's difficult to build a brand if you're changing your tone, changing your image, changing your logo. So that has really helped in making folks, 95% of our market is from the US language, making folks understand what Puerto Rico is about. So even during the pandemic, the PMO, the Discover Puerto Rico, started making, through social media, slowly but surely, posts about what we have to offer, talking about the culinary here, adventure, nature, old San Juan, et cetera, et cetera. So Puerto Rico, once people started traveling in 2021, it was the domestic destination that grew and recovered the quickest. That was remarkable. And it's been 3.5 years, almost 4 years. And what has happened? A number of hotels post-hurricane got renovated. The growth and demand has motivated hotel owners to reinvest in their properties. Many of them up-branding, taking an existing maybe 3-star and bringing it up to a 4-star or beyond. New developments, we together with our partners at Alberto, we invested in another historic property in Revitalizing Provincial. We opened right at the beginning of 2021. We developed the residence in Sulaver. And we're very happy with those investments. We are about to make our 9th hotel investment on the island. And we believe that what Puerto Rico can become in terms of not a trendy destination, but something that becomes more permanent. Now, the level of investment in renovations, in branding or brand conversions, and in new developments has been significant. We have the Pericas from Banco Popular, and the other local banks have become very active in lending in the hotel segment. Before, you would speak to the chief lending officer of Popular, I said, I would touch hotels with 10 proposals. I was going back 20 years, and that has really changed. The open hotels has become increasingly local. A number of local entrepreneurs and investors have put their capital behind the industry. We're seeing more mainstream capital come into the industry. Before, it was very difficult to get capital for any hotel development. Case in point, the Sheraton here. Back in 2005 and 2006, we knocked on the doors with about 90 capital firms in the States. It was very, very, very difficult. Actually, no takers. We had to do the offer capital came from local sources. We opened in 2009, definitely not the best time to open on the island. And it was rough. Alberto came back into government in 2013, and it was just us here with an abandoned steel structure next door. Alberto saying on the press there, one of my first duties is getting rid of that abandoned steel structure next to the Sheraton. The first call he got but we've come a long way. Now our neighbors here, Pisa, two more hotels next to us. A difference maker for the convention district, and that has motivated us to invest $40 million over the past 3 years in this property. So things have changed. We are positive about the future, but tourism can be fickle, can be trendy. So we want, it's very important to raise consciousness of the importance continue funding, marketing of the destination through the DMO. They've done a great job. Whoever's criticizing it, it's purely politics, unfortunately. So we believe in the future, but we gotta keep on investing behind the destination. People have options, and we gotta wake up every morning understanding that people can go elsewhere. People and capital elsewhere.
Thank you for that. Now, I would like to share with you the perspective of the banks. Tito suggested to get back to 2008 to 2010. And to put a little bit of perspective, I accepted a board position at Western Bank, which was one of the top banks in Puerto Rico. 2008, this was the dates that it was suggests. And it closed in 2010. Banco Popular took over. It was a great bank, but the situation in Puerto Rico was such that the FDIC had to basically force a reduction of the banking system. The system could not hold the number of banking institutions that we had. I accepted that position because I was kind of old and I knew that I didn't cause the problems of the banks, so I would not have any negative consequences. Because it was kind of like the Garcia Marquez novel, a chronicle of announced death, and everybody knew that there would be banks closed in Puerto Rico. So Tito, how has this evolved from that very black moment of our banking setting? By the way, capital of Puerto Rico families was depleted at the same time. In Puerto Rico, families used to invest in three things. The diversification definition was defined by holding values. That was the definition in Puerto Rico of having a diverse portfolio. Then people invested in real estate. And then people invested in Puerto Rico municipal bonds. It was a domino. First, the banks, in a matter of weeks, went to be valued at 10% of what they were buying, with the dividend going to zero. Then the real estate that everybody believed would always be going up went to 50% on the value. And then Puerto Rico declared bankruptcy, and the bonds were selling at 30 to 40 cents on the dollar. So that was what was going on from 2008 to 2014 perspective. So banks.
So good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. In case we will run out of time, I'd like to give you the punchline of my message to all the business owners in the audience. Puerto Rico counts with excellent, robust banks and really a deep bench and a lot of talent to support projects and growth. So feel comfortable being in Puerto Rico banks. We have the honor of serving, supporting both the projects. They're outstanding operators and outstanding business people, as you can tell from their substance and their business. As Alberto mentioned, I suggested going back to 2008. In 2008, Popular's net income was negative $1.2 billion. That's $1.2 billion. It was a dark time. But then fast forward to 2022, Popular is making $1.2 billion positive income. Along the way, Popular acquired 4 financial institutions and partially replaced the GDP, the government development bank. We serve most of the public sector And up to the point, in services and deposits, we are the main bank of the government. We went from 10 banks to 4 or 5 banks in 2024. Construction divisions in 2008, 2010 turned to be workout units. Getting loans for construction with all the trouble loans that the banks had was a challenge. Popular remained active even though it was really careful in small projects. But now, when you look at the banks and construction, it's a really vibrant and active industry. As Fede was mentioning, Popular, I would guess, I was the director of the corporate banking division for 10 years. Maybe when I started in 2013, my guess is that we had probably 100 million, not more than 200 million in loans to the hospitality sector. By the time I left, we were close to $1 billion. So that tells you a lot about how the industry has developed. I always tell the federal examiners when they came to the bank, they would spend 90% of their time looking at troubled loans and special loans. Now when they come to the bank, they're looking 90% of the time, they're spending looking at the business units. That tells you a lot of how well banks are doing. Bankers have seen, they have gone through some really tough times, so I would convey that the experience shows the banks have been resilient and that they're able to face all types of markets and business cycles. Today, when you look at the Puerto Rico banking sector, you see that they have robust earnings, and they have robust capital levels, and they maintain well-capitalized units. So there's willingness, there's openness for the businesses. So once again, we have gone from some really dark times to some really successful times. The bench is deep. Even though we're talking about projects and Fede talked about hotels, Rafa's talking about housing. The truth is that banks support. When we talk about projects, looking at housing and hotels and real estate, it's only a small part of the picture. To get progress, we need to support multiple industries, and banks are doing that. When you look at Popular, once again, in 10 years, we went probably looking at the corporate market, not the small and middle market, maybe from having $500 million in commercial loans to north of $1.6 billion. That's really compelling. How the banks and progress.
Thank you. Now, let's take one question for each of our panelists and see if the voting out. Rafa, for the first time, I have been one way or the other tied to economic development for many years. And affordable housing have never been kind of a topic to us. And now all of a sudden, I think it's most important because it's kind of a key problem to be solved if we want to see the acceleration that we feel that we can master. Why should we continue building if people are saying that there are 300,000 abandoned homes? Why are there more new developments like we used to have new developments in Puerto Rico? We used to build around 1,000 homes every year, and we are not seeing almost 300, 400 houses being built. What needs to be done in Puerto Rico to enable more new housing development, particularly in affordable housing?
Yes, thank you for that question. I love answering that question. The first thing we need to do is not listen to anybody that is saying
Tú lo estás
there are
cogiendo,
vacant houses. Stop building.
tú lo,
It's important that whenever you hear that, you look beyond and see who's actually saying this. First of all, that statistic doesn't make any sense. When they say 300,000 vacant homes are in Puerto Rico, that includes second homes. Which
Yo estoy
means
cogiendo
somebody
mal.
right now that might have a property
Yo-
either in Bahia or in Palmas or somewhere, and yes, it's vacant, but that they will use it on the weekends. So that just will take out
Estoy en la de
a
Omar ahora.
bunch of homes right there. Then you have the fact, this is already data that has been corroborated. 55% of all housing in Puerto Rico is informal. So you have then half of those homes that were not built up to code. And then you have another practical approach. 70% of all houses in Puerto Rico were built over 40 years ago. That means homes back then were not up to the seismic resistances that are required these days. It doesn't mean they're going to fall, but they're certainly not up to date. To me, as a builder, what is most important above all is that they are not palatable to the market. All young families these days are complaining about one thing: there are no homes. And yes, there are homes for sale. Anyone of you can go into those online and you'll find homes for sale. They're just not the type of home that anybody that has worked and wants to give quality of life to their family. That's not what they're looking for. So we have a market crisis, and particularly where it's so easy in Puerto Rico to
Bueno, cabrón, quiere no comer.
and move to somewhere where you can get that type of home that your pocket will allow you to do so. So we have to recognize that. To me, it's incredible that in the United States, at both sides of the aisle, the left and the right, it's clear the only way they will solve the housing crisis is building more inventory. That is the only thing that will level off homes. I see the press a lot complaining about the homes that are being built not up to the prices that the people need. Well, homes that are being built, which are less than 1,000 per year, where it used to be over 13,000 every year back in the 2090s. Every home that is being built is pre-sold and sold. That is the case in every project we have out for sale. So evidently, there is a market for that. What people seem to forget
Antes de construir la
is that
casa,
house is important, even though if it's at a higher price point. And a lot of the people that we sell homes and buy homes at the $800,000 or even $1 million, though that is not the price point for a first buyer. Typically, they're spending off a lower price point. So somebody that's buying an $800,000 typically comes from a $300,000 or $400,000 home that is now free in the market. If you don't allow that market to be flexible and don't give that family that has a $400,000, $500,000 home to move up because their pocket allows it, then you don't create that stability in the market. So it's a very long answer. We have to build more homes in Puerto Rico. We have to take care not only of the permitting process. Yes, the permitting process is a disaster, but the planning process is even worse. And I'm referring to the land use plan. We have over 80% of our land classified as suelo rústico especialmente protegido. If somebody can tell me what that means, please enlighten me, because I don't know what that means. They copied and pasted that from a land use plan in Spain, and somebody much more evident than I am decided to put that classification on 80% of the land in Puerto Rico. And it's very hard to get that from suelo rústico to urban land. And with this, I will leave you. And you know how much of the not built land is available to be urbanized? It's less than 1%. So, you know, everybody wonders why do we not have more homes? Well, you know, those of us who want to build, it's very hard to get your hands on land that is able to be permitted. And we can get into how retrofitting homes is a challenge and how it needs to be
Oye,
incentivized.
tío,
That's probably for another.
Katie está grabando en Rabbit.
Fede,
Katie.
for me, it's no surprise at all what's
Sí,
going
está
on
grabando en
in
Rabbit.
the sector.
¿Y dónde ya está grabando?
My undersecretary of economic
Yo sé que sí, ella estaba haciendo ahí la...
decided on going one way or the other to hospitality because we believe that after seeing everything,
Ella, yo creo que ella está grabando, sí, está buscando su
hospitality
propio
was
estudio.
by far the most underdeveloped sector. But tell us your views on why
Ella no les pagaba a ustedes, ¿verdad que no?
the imagen in Puerto Rico.
Pero ¿y por qué entonces se fue si no le... Sí, ¿por qué se fue si no le pagó?
You could say it's causing the competition in the
What
market.
the fuck, cabrón.
How
Déjame cambiar el de esto porque estoy sin batería y se me va a arreglar.
impacting all else. And how do you see the future of blogging? You can these thoughts that are commonly disclosed, you can use.
Well, I'll try to answer, those are multiple questions, so I'll try to answer as best I can. We are very positive and enthused with the current status and the future or the potential of the industry here. We our competitors in the Caribbean Basin and Florida continue investing in their destinations also. So we need to stay with, keep investing and stay.
Cabrón, esta cámara, este trípode está bien bestia. Cabezón.
You know, be prepared for attached
Sí, cabrón, está bien facilito.
as grows. But conveniences,
So, entonces,
stays,
no lo había
only
podido
on average 3-hour flight.
cuando es la...
Having the largest concentration of wealth
Tío.
in the, basically in the eastern
El acuerdo
States.
digo con ella y ella se
After the hurricane, with the insurance proceeds, most properties got renovated.
No.
And then we're seeing some very promising and encouraging investments. Carter Ren, so to speak, after he's doing a phenomenal job there, Gallo with the Auberge.
Manito, y yo no sé cómo, bro. Me imagino que no lo estaba dando todo. Porque, honestamente, cámara, producción, edición, cosas. Claro, y ya lo único que tenía que hacer era esto, porque ya tenía ya todo.
A Mandarin if that happens, that's going to be wonderful for Puerto Rico. So that, and on the eastern part of the island, was the roads, this
Cabrón, y eso fue nada más por ser ella, cabrón. Estaba pegada.
Sophistic class resort.
Cabrón, pues, porque no está haciendo nada. Está metida, cabrón, en... Sí, en verdad, no entiende. Pero en YouTube, cabrón, con todas esas bellas caras que ella ponía, que estaba.
And all of this has generated major investment, major economic development. The average hospitality employee,
Con lo rica que está esa cabrona.
the per capita income,
Esa sí que es una morena que está rica.
there's increasingly a larger number of percentage of
¿Verdad que se puede chapear?
in management positions in the properties here, so that's very.
Creo que eso es ya ahí.
There's excitement in the newer generations. They see more probability. They see more.
Pero por ninguna razón, cabrón, porque ella estaba ya monetizando con 100,000 suscriptores en YouTube, cabrón.
Very positive. But again,
Cabrón, ella pudiera estar cabrón a lo mejor.
people have.
Ella a lo mejor estuviera hasta en uno de los canales más famosos de Latinoamérica con esa mierda. Pues lo bellaco que son la gente por ahí, cabrón. No son morenitas así,
And
cabrón.
continue to look after the health of the industry and prepare ourselves for what's to come.
Thank you. A closing comment.
También.
We now
También.
have very few banks. The banks will be able to support the huge growth that we know is coming.
Short answer is yes. I would like to reinforce some of the comments that were made across the different panels, and especially this morning with Secretary of the Department of Economic Development. Now, the banks in general, at least I can speak for Bob,
Este es el último, ¿verdad?
we have a positive outlook in the short and medium term.
El último
You look at the
panel, ¿no?
statistics, you see there's maybe that's not evident, but there's a lot of liquidity in terms of
Mucho que te
retail, individuals, and commercial sector. Unemployment is close to the historic low. There's a significant amount of government debt that has been settled, as was mentioned. I guess the only significant debt that's still pending is PERPA, the energy utility company. Disaster relief funds are expected to be between $6 and $8 billion for the next 4 years. Inflation is projected under 2% for the next few years. Interest rates are declining. The average real GNP for the next 4 years, it's close to flat. According to the fiscal board, if you look at Moody's, they have a more optimistic expectation. The U.S. economy is resilient to respond to the Fed's rate hike cycle. Maybe on a not so much positive note, but it's something that I guess it's our responsibility to handle. It's the matter of the population reduction. That's something that has to be addressed. But on that note, banks are ready. There's 4 or 5 banks. We can handle significant transactions. Maybe was Popular has some credits above $300 million. There's an active in case there's a need for larger projects, so it's not that usual in Puerto Rico. The 4 or 5 banks that are active can handle it. And we have excellent relationship with U.S. banks. Loans like the one provided to Metropistas, one to Aerostar, those are billion-dollar loans that are syndicated, and all the local banks are active. And the level of trust and working relationship with U.S. banks is so robust, so strong, that usually banks, it happens that banks in the U.S. will ask local banks, especially in Popular, first, they want to support the line participating in the global syndicated loans. And second, it's also usual for the last Popular to be agent in most of these transactions.
Thank you very much. We have time for 2 or 3 questions. Any questions?
Hi, to the developers, I have a question. With regards to skilled labor right now in Puerto Rico, there is a lack of. How do you feel about the H-2B program to bring foreign employees to help with construction in Puerto Rico?
I wish I could say I feel positive, but the fact is, up to the latest that I know, not one employee has been able to go into the sectors through that program. When initially a lot of talk was developed around that, I consulted with a lawyer, and the lawyer basically said, I don't want to take your money. These are competitive processes. You are competing against the whole entire USA. It's a very costly, lengthy process, and it's very, very hard to compete to bring that labor through that visa. We're still going to do something different, but that's what I've been able to find out.
Any other question? Closing comments, Fede?
Vamos a ver el tiro. Vamos a ver el tiro.
We mentioned later, and I'm going to stress that point again. We are seeing more mainstream capital from the States looking at opportunities in our industry here. During the bond crisis and during the banking crisis, of course, it was a different set of characters looking at Puerto Rico. Now we're seeing more long-term plays, more private equity, and again, mainstream
¿Qué está hablando?
institution. We just sold the Embassy Suites letter, which is financed by Banco Popular, Service, and Ascendant from LA came in, which stayed in the deal. We, some years back, were in San Maria, Rockwood, capital from New York, so that's from China. And Highgate has invested, Highgate from New York has invested in those deals with us. That's a welcome change. Before it was different, and hopefully that continues.
Thank you. Con closing thoughts, Tito.
Well, once again, I'll go back to my punchline. There's a robust banking industry and there's a lot of knowledge, so you feel comfortable dealing with banks. As Fede was mentioning, it's interesting. We have seen also funds coming to the island, and there has been quite an active, quite a lot of activity in mergers and acquisitions. We have seen funds acquiring commercial real estate. They have been looking into retail. So, I guess you can trust the banks. There's a lot of activity, lots of companies acquiring either distribution companies in food, acquiring commercial centers, and also looking into hotels and other industries. So, it's an interesting time.
That's capital that is coming to put back the capital that
Voy a moverme.
local families lost.
And you can tell, in terms of tourism, something I find really interesting is that when you look at the occupation in hotels, it has stayed pretty stable, maybe around, I guess, the 70s. And that's taking into consideration that my guess is that when you look at short-term rentals, they have probably doubled the available rooms in Puerto Rico. So now you see probably short-term rentals with similar acute occupancy. That tells you that tourism are probably doubling. So that's an interesting fact.
Rafa, some closing thoughts.
Sure. Very briefly on that same point, I think where the real opportunity lies is in the diaspora. I think we propose the government projects where, similar to Law 2022, we find creative ways to make it attract and incentivize those that are away in the U.S. mainland and want to come back to Puerto Rico to work in the reconstruction. We do need skilled labor. As far as more housing, Puerto Rico has to be able to get rid of this paternalistic vision that the government needs to control. We unfortunately inherited that since Rexford Tocqueville in the 1940s, and we have not been able to get through that. We need to be able to do what moves Fede, what moves me, tourism, housing, its markets. It is not a government that thinks he can push or pull us to where housing needs to be done here or there. We serve our clients. What our clients want, that's what we will build. And when you have an island that 55% of construction every year is being built informally without any sort of permits, no sort of sensitivity to the environment, you have to flexibilize permitting, you have to flexibilize land use and let builders cater to whatever demand is out there.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the last panel of the day and the last panel of Icon Summit 2024. Please stay on stage because you'll be in this panel. And I'll be introducing Carter Red. He's had a 30-year career in luxury resort and private club development across the southeastern U.S. and Caribbean. He became the president of Juniper Capital in partnership with Capital United, leading the development of Mongallo Ocean Club, a luxury private club community in Fajardo, and of course, the Biggie needs no introduction, being the co-founder of Icon. So please welcome them as they close out the conference. Thank you, gentlemen.
Buenos días. Before we wrap up, Icon Summit, I really want to appreciate thanks on behalf of our organization, for sponsors, to our attendees, for board members for being here and supporting our organization. Without you, this would not be possible. So we really appreciate we are all of you are listening people, and you made a concern effort to be here today. So you don't take that lightly. So on behalf of our organization, thank you. There's so much to talk about. One of the things that in the last couple of days, I think Moncayo has become a trending name. It's part of the Puerto Rican vocabulary. You've been all over the news or over social media, and there's a couple of things that I read that caught my attention. They describe you as the visionary with the $1 billion idea for the East Coast. And another article said that you're planning to build or replicate Palm Beach and Puerto Rico. Before we dive into Moncayo, I think to have better context of that conversation, I think it's important for everybody to understand who you are, who's behind the group. So if you're will share that with us.
The last thing standing between us for that cocktail. Thank you for the introduction. You're very kind. I am not the visionary. I'm part of the team. The visionary is sort of looking to bring a property that's had a difficult history over 20 years. We're at the foothills of the Monkey, so we have mountains down in the Keys, and Latanya and Cayo becomes Moncayo, excuse me. We are a group that was sponsored by Juno Capital and we have developed we've organized a team that is now numbering approximately 30 people. We work in Florida, and over 90% of that team is Puerto Rican. Very pleased to say that a number of those professionals were engineers, were architects, were project managers, who were in sales, who were in marketing. Our Boricua had come back to the island to work on this project. Our project is 1,100 acres. We're essentially going to get a little bit larger. We're working to do something very, very different, something magical, to introduce to the market. It is luxury, a luxury private residential community that happens to have a very small 68-unit boutique hotel, which will be operated by a Bears Resorts Collection.
So before I start this panel, I was going to mention that for the last 28 years, we've heard about a big project coming to Fajardo, but I just heard of a robot that said that Riviera started in 63. So maybe there's not that big of a gap for you to make it successful. That being said, it's hard to do business in Puerto Rico. What makes your group different from your previous predecessors that makes us think, and we are rooting for you, I think Fajardo is rooting for you, but what makes you different that we want to make sure that that's actually good?
Well, hopefully everybody will be rooting for us. We inherited a beautiful piece of property. Yes, there were two previous developers that ran into trouble for a number of different reasons. We've been doing this for a little while, 30 years. A team that's doing master plan communities like this that are complicated. Every day there's another problems. I think that hopefully in those 30 years I've made most of the mistakes in my career behind me. We're not going to make them here. But development is very different. It's complicated. Doing development work, period, is difficult. On an island makes it even more difficult. But we're blessed that we inherited a project that was fully entitled. We have most of our permits in place. We have a good relationship with the agencies. We have a good team on site. We have a good team of vendors, contractors, professionals, Fede included, Interlink, CIC, CMA, lots of great companies that are rooted here in Puerto Rico, that are doing business in Puerto Rico, that are here to help us.
So you just mentioned that you have already your flag for the hotel, it's going to be your version. So I believe this is Juniper's Capital's first engagement as far as venture and as far as overflow to the Caribbean within your first project.
Interestingly, yes, it's the first beverage from the Caribbean. It is the second beverage that I've developed. One just opened in Charleston, South Carolina. And actually, Juniper Capital owns an beverage hotel called Bishop's Lodge in New Mexico.
Was there any particular reason about choosing Puerto Rico for the first destination in the Caribbean?
You know, Beverage is a really incredible brand. I'm excited for the island to get to know the brand. It's relatively young. It was really rooted in Napa Valley in the wine country of California. It was recapitalized by a billionaire out of Houston who has aspirations to grow the brand very similarly to Four Seasons, but in a much more boutique manner. Their hotels are typically ranging 68 to no more than 80 keys, always with a branded residential component. But they are, I'd say they're not so rigid as a Four Seasons or similar type brand. They're much more centered on making sure that their hotels are rooted in their place, meaning Beverage has already done incredible diligence research on Puerto Rico, culture, food, language, the music, and we're really, really excited to see how they're going to incorporate all those things into what they do for our hotel.
So what I find really interesting about Moncayo, it's primarily led as a private community, so it has a component of residential and hospitality. I'm just very curious about this particular data. You are in the luxury segment, and if you see at all the sales in the past 10 years, traditionally, the luxury market is dominated by either Dorado, Condado, and to some extent, Rio Grande. How does Fajardo fit into that market where it's just, for the longest history in Puerto Rico, it's just new territory? How can you explain that?
Well, I mean, first, I want to pay homage to those who created the luxury market for us in Puerto Rico, right? The work that's Studio piece in Dorado and Paul and the same regions and others in other markets. You know, our hypothesis is very much based on the success of those communities, what they've done here on Long Island. You know, I think that how we're positioning Moncayo is not necessarily trying to do better, we're just trying to be different. Hence why we're, you know, across 1,100 acres, we're only going to have 400 homes. So we're intentionally trying to be very, very small, very, very boutique, very, very special, very, very exclusive. Again, not trying to be better, just trying to be different. And I think the fact that we are on the island, we're literally adjacent to the largest marina in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico. We have an easement that take our residents directly to that marina. We're 12 minutes from Salem Airport. So I think we have some unique differentiators that will define Moncayo over time. And, you know, again, I think that, you know, the luxury sector here is emerging. And I think that we root for our colleagues in Dorado. We root for our colleagues in Bahia. With the advent of Discovery coming next door, those are old colleagues of mine who used to work for the company. We're friends. It validates the destination. It's a positive thing. Essentia, same thing. We're rooting for it, right? Activity begets more activity. So, you know, when one of us has a success, we should all be high-fiving.
I think what I've seen in the last couple of years as we have done Icon, I remember last year we had Brisa and Paul and John Paulson's group. And by design, I introduced them as competitors, where actually it's not that. We're competing against Miami or jurisdictions. So I think there's some misconception about how actually the developers work. I think it's extremely difficult for a developer to conquer the entire island, and just a matter of de-risking the destination. Then again, everything that you have said sounds beautiful, and it seems to be a project that is going to transform the eastern part of Puerto Rico. However, we want to be a think tank, and we want to acknowledge the possible challenges that we have seen in the development. What keeps you up at night? What are the challenges that we have faced doing Moncayo, and how you plan to tackle them?
Well, I think again, I mean, there are a number of challenges. Some have already been stated by some of the earlier panels with regards to workforce, access to trades. We know that's a problem. We know that's a challenge. That's why we are leaning on local businesses, local builders, local general contractors to help us succeed in our plan. I think that public support is obviously something that we're very, very mindful of. We want to obviously execute our business plan and create a return for our investors. We also want to execute a beautiful community that I think the island will be proud of. But it takes more than just capital. It takes more than just grit plan. It takes support. So we're very blessed that we have good support from the government. We have been designated as a priority project by the government, and the agencies have been very supportive. We worked very, very hard, very intentionally over the last year and a half, largely offline, trying to stay off radar. Right? We've tried to be the best kept secret somehow. But we've been building bridges. We've been trying to meet with our local mayor, representatives, meet with the elders in our nearby communities, help them understand our vision, what it means for them, what it means for job creation in eastern Puerto Rico, which, as this group probably knows, has really had a very difficult time since the day we left in 2005. So, a project like ours, we firmly believe is the ability to change a lot of lives. Not just for the people who are going to be living in the homes there, or enjoying the golf, or enjoying the club, but for those people who are going to be building, those people who are going to be maintaining it, those people who are going to be holding jobs that are going to, the businesses that are going to come about, right, through the evolution of our community. We think we have the ability to drastically change lives that are, it's needed. Luquillo, Sigma, and Florida have not been the same since 2005.
So, one of the things that we hear every day, whether it's in the press or just you see in social media, I think there's a misconception or maybe a lack of communicating effectively from the people in the luxury sector about the job creations, about the data. So if you have more specific data on how Moncayo is going to impact positively, aside from the people that might visit the hotel or buy a residence, what is the trickle-down effect of the economics in the entire Western region?
When you do a project like this, you do economic studies. We've done one in Baker until you did one, we're getting ready to do another one in Oxford. It's not economics. And studies like that would suggest that a community like ours, through construction, through stabilization, could represent as much as 15,000 jobs, which I know sounds like a really big number, but that's direct jobs, it's indirect jobs, it's jobs that are created as a result of the economies that are grown by the direct and indirect salaries and wages that are a result of this employment that we're creating. The study would suggest that in 10 years, the revenue creation, the income creation by Moncayo could result in as much as $500 million over 10 years. The tax revenues for local municipalities, which is $90 million. So this is meaningful.
This might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but there might be a relation, and I think Agustin Rojo mentioned Moncayo yesterday in how different segments intertwine. Is there a connection between luxury and the necessity of doing affordable housing in that area in order to sustain the development?
Of course, absolutely. It's not necessarily our business plan, but it'll be the business plan for someone else. That obviously the jobs that we're going to be creating, there's going to be populations that are moving from other parts of the island to the area and they need homes. Obviously the jobs come first, the salary in second, then the requirements for those subdivisions for upper management, middle management, right, low affordable housing, etc. All those will happen. It just takes time. And I've seen this before. This is probably my third or fourth big master plan community of this sort. And so I've had the benefit of seeing how these things do create jobs, how they do create microeconomies. And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen.
And let me go back to the hotel. I think on the initial first projects, I believe the first one was 300 keys and then it went down to 200 something. Now it's only 67 keys. Why a shift in the approach to hospitality? Because you have a lot of acres. Why you're going small?
We purchased Cayo Largo. We inherited a project that was approved for over 2,000 housing units, 2,000. The first developer built a intercontinental hotel over 300 keys. The second developer, DLJ, was building a Four Seasons hotel over approximately 140 keys. Our business plan is different. Theirs was more focused on hotel. Ours is certainly focused on hotel, but ours is a small hotel. It is a component of hospitality and amenity to serve our community. Right, the 400 units, again, is intentional. We want to create something that we don't believe right now currently exists on Island, where there is a high level of exclusivity, service, personality, personalization. It gives us 400 homes the ability to do something that's very, very high touch, and it's more on brand with what we're doing.
In one of the many articles that I had to read in order to get to understand Moncayo, I read something that caught my attention, and there was a blue zone approach to the project. I had the opportunity to tour the facilities and to kind of get a sense of that. Can you elaborate more? Is just a catchphrase, or there's more into that?
Yeah, I think that, Blue Zone, we all read the book, we all know the theories behind it, but I think at this point, there aren't very many people in this room that aren't interested in living longer, living better, right? And not just the years of their life, but the quality of the years. Moncayo was the opportunity to switch some great things to be able to help realize that potential. Across the 1,100 acres, we are including over 100-acre farm. The farm is actually being prepared right now for fields, fruit trees, produce. It is a big part of our story. So the ability for us to be able to grow produce for our homeowners, for the nearby communities, where again, I think there's a real need for locally grown fresh produce is meaningful. The trails, miles and miles of trails, access to trails. Of course, a community with a resort like ours, a club and a hotel, there's an expectation of a spa and wellness and fitness programs. But we intend with our programming to make it much more than just the first 45 minutes, the last 45 minutes of your day. We intend for our programming to include mindfulness, spirituality, and nutrition, not only in our restaurants, but in our homes, smart technology and the design of our homes. So I know it sounds very, very aspirational, but this is what our market is looking for.
It seems that you're in Puerto Rico for the long run. How do you see Puerto Rico 5 years from now?
That's a great question. Obviously, we're very bullish, Ricky. I think I would need to use a metaphor. I think there was a topic panel talking about space here. And, we think of Puerto Rico as being like a rocket sitting on the pad full of fuel ready to roar. And what gets us excited? I've lived in Puerto Rico now for a year and a half. I live in Old San Juan. We have, personally, my family, we've become enamored with Puerto Rico. We've been in the Southeast, the Caribbean, Bahamas our whole lives. And I'm ashamed that it took me this long to become acquainted with the magic of this island. Which this group certainly knows. Obviously, either lived here or moved here because of the lifestyle here. It's incredible. We have all the faith in the world in Puerto Rico. And I think, again, with, as Fede indicated, a new wave of capital that's coming here, right? With groups like Juniper and Capital United, it's Starwood, Discovery Land Company, the Rubin Brothers. Clearly, when Secretary CJ said that this is sort of the last frontier, I don't think it's really the last frontier for long.
One thing that from the panels that I've seen, I really appreciate that the developers are no longer shy about acknowledging their predecessors and their competitors. I think as a whole, they make the industry much stronger. So every time, I think there's been a shift in the paradigm as far as, we need more people to come in to bring capital and to hopefully elevate our destination. Before we wrap up, is there anything particular about the East Coast of Puerto Rico that makes it different than the rest of the line, in your opinion?
Again, makes it different, not necessarily better. Is again, we have being at the foothill of the rainforest and the mountains is magical. It's the misty peaks and then going down to the Caribbean Sea and being able to get on a boat and jump from Spanish Virgin Islands is, we feel, is a force multiplier for us. Being next to the largest marina, being next to that airport, those are amenities that we could possibly build on our own. So for us to be able to take advantage of those is really meaningful and a very significant part of our business plan.
Before I open the questions to the public, any final comments on what should we be expecting, anything that the public should know about you and Moncayo and your partners, anything in particular?
Well, we're good guys. We have the best of intentions.
How's your Spanish?
Pardon me?
How's your Spanish?
Está bien.
Okay, muy bien.
Estaba preparando que hacer eso para hoy.
We should have done the conversation in Spanish from the beginning, maybe.
It's just a little easier, so thank
Okay.
you. But we were prepared. We want to be members of this community.
It's important.
We want to be good neighbors. We want to do our, not only our business plan, but we want to change lives. We want to build bridges. We know that we have a responsibility.
And it's important for anyone that comes to Puerto Rico and does business. It's really, really, really important to co-invest, co-network, and just make sure you take care of your locals. Make sure that there's a connectivity that way. Sometimes there's a disconnect on the information, and I think having many Puerto Ricans as part of your project is really important. Any questions from the public? Right.
This group is thirsty.
Rudy? Do we have a mic for Rudy?
Hey, our pleasure. Thanks for your participation today. We have property in Rio Grande, and when we talk about Rio Grande, when we talk about Doral, we feel there's a missing component in Rio Grande that Doral has. I want to see if you're thinking, or somebody else in the community of Ohio is thinking about it. And the school is, I have the reason for that. The Arabation, they built the school and they built healthcare facilities nearby, right? And that really, I think, anchored, even though it took longer, but it really anchored that community very, very well. In Rio Grande, you don't see that, right? It's only a second home place. And my question is Moncayo primarily a second home target, or are you or anybody else thinking of kind of broadening the offering with schools, healthcare, etc.?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking them. I should have weaved that into my conversation with Ricky, but yes, we learned very early on here that unless we have some means of addressing medical in schools, then we're going to have a very difficult time appealing to a good portion of the market. We are designing a school. It will be down from Law International School. It will be K through 12. The community of 400 certainly isn't a large enough population to populate a school. It is being designed and placed outside of our gate, so it is obviously intended to be a school that's going to serve much more than the Moncayo community. And the foundation that we're establishing intends to raise funds to provide scholarships. So it really is a school for the community, the broader Eastern Puerto Rican community. These things take time. Schools are complicated. I'm sure it's us some time. But my understanding is us now, 20 years later, is 900 students, and it's a great success story. So there are lots of lessons for us to learn through that, but we have good consultants who are helping us, and we're trying to get smarter. I've never developed a school before, admittedly. So we're finding professionals who have on medical. We have a partner at Juniper who lives in Coral Gables. He's on the board of Baptist Health. He's helped us with access with that system that we probably wouldn't otherwise have had. For those who probably have been in Puerto Rico, who've never had a medical incident, Baptist is typically one of those places where you end up going. And it's an amazing health campus. Baptist is a consultant of ours. We're working with them on a strategic relationship that begins with support during construction. It helps us make sure that anyone gets hurt during construction and we have the means to take care of it. We don't have great medical facilities on the east side of the island. We hope to change that. Again, I don't think it's going to be necessarily us alone it's going to motivate a good quality hospital operator to come to the area. But between Rio Grande, Conquistador, Carlo, us, Discovery, Starwood, Palmas del Mar, there is certainly a substantial enough population that would dictate us having a proper, well-run hospital system in Eastern Puerto Rico. And I hope it's practiced. Hope I answered your question.
Any more questions? That's a good one.
The golf course is starting construction. We will begin grassing the first phase of holes in January. The last phase of golf holes will be grass will be approximately December of 2025. The course will effectively be ready to play by summer of 26.
How about pickleball and paddle?
What
Oh, yeah.
was the question?
Pickleball courts and paddle?
Yes, yes, we'll have several clubhouses, one dedicated for food, beverage, and golf, and one specific for athletic facilities. So there'll be pretty robust facilities for health and wellness and longevity, spa, pickleball, padel, tennis. I know you're a tennis player, I'm a tennis player. And so again, the facility will be pretty extraordinary.
And just before we wrap up, now that really spoke, I was thinking of Marina when you really speak. So is there a driver having that proximity to the marinas? Do you think there might be a different kind of clientele that is driven to Puerto Rico by the proximity of the marinas to Moncayo?
I mean, we see the helicopters fly over us all the time. I mean, people coming from somewhere else, San Juan or Dorado, or Bahia, by helicopter to go get on their boats at Puerto del Rey. Yes, I mean, I think that boating, just like golf, is an affinity, right? It's an affinity group. It's a very powerful group. People who own boats typically like to live near their boats. So, you know, we tend to think that yes, more than likely there are people who own yachts at Puerto del Rey that are excited about what we're doing. That might be interested in having a home, maybe a second home. You know, we're certainly open and anticipate the concept where maybe some people have homes elsewhere, say San Juan or Dorado, maybe we become their country home, right? So there's a little bit of a town and country play.
One more question, Mikey. Thanks a lot, Carter. Great presentation. We're clearly all rooting for you over here in Sydney. Basic question about your homes. If you can share with us, how many of the homes have been pre-sold or how many of the lots have been pre-sold? How many are left? What's the average lot price? And what are your plans for building the homes? So that can be specs, can be a Dorado structure. You might be familiar with that. Tell us what you can about that, please.
We have sales cheap.
So I think the question was about pre-sales, et cetera. You know, we've been holding off on going to market. We are currently working through what I would call the first tier, which are friends and family. We have a very robust list of founders that we'll be going to next. You know, we market differently. In fact, we really don't market. We just do sort of very strategic public relations. And it's more about relationships than just about direct marketing. You won't see ads for us. You won't see billboards. We just don't do that. Ours is, again, it's about exclusivity. It's small, it's by invitation. We want this to feel special. We're not for everybody. But to answer your question, of the 400 things that we'll be selling, approximately 200 of them will be auberge branded residences. So they come with a very, very high level of services and management. Those will be a variation of hotel villas as well as condominiums. They'll be ranging in size from 4,500 square feet up. We have estate lots that are, again, approximately 200 of those. And those will be ranging from half an acre to well over an acre. And thus far, the demand has been good. We've seen purchasers come and decide they like one lot, they like the other lot, they decide to buy both and put them together. Because one of the things we're learning is that most people here are looking for larger homes because of This is no longer really just a resort destination market, Puerto Rico, large. People are looking for larger homes. So we are working with some of the most talented architects in the Southeast, many based in Miami, several based here in Puerto Rico, to design a series of plan book homes that we will be building, some on spec, some will be designed. So again, as a semi-custom product, a buyer who selects a lot will come to us and say, what are my options? And we have a series of beautiful homes that sort of qualify as semi-custom, but enables them to make changes and modifications and finish selections, and then get built.
And that.
Happy hour?
Happy hour. Yes, you have the right mindset. One of the things that you said that is one of my takeaways is that you want to become good neighbors and you want to incorporate yourself with the community, and that's like one of the reasons why when I got reached out to be a part of Icon, I said yes, because there has to be this sort of dialogue and not just with people on stage and audience, but everyone moving forward. So anyone that is looking to do investment in Puerto Rico, like the first thing that you have to come with is also being a part of this community. So thank you so much for saying that. And with that, we close out Icon Summit 2024. Big round of applause. A lot of people came together to do this, and we're going to ask them to come on stage. So